Hi everyone, it's Goddess Enchantments here, and today I'm going to do a video on how to set up a basic Sabbath altar that you can also apply to any other type of altar as well. So whether you want to do a prosperity altar or a love altar. Now this video is for people that are new to their path and have not set up an altar before, because I have had so many questions recently about altars and requests to do a video. I thought it was about time. So if you are more advanced and you've been doing altars for a very long time, you may find some interesting things here. I don't know, but I will do a different type of altar video later on, showing some of my altars that I've had for a very long time. But this is for those just starting out. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to do an Imbolc altar because Imbolc is coming up, and I'm going to use the Imbolc kit, altar and ritual kit from the shop, just because I will be using these items in my own altar for this Sabbath, and I've been making them all up to send them out, so I have one handy. This will be my kit, but I'm also going to give you alternatives, so you don't have to have this kit to find this video useful. I'm going to give you alternatives for absolutely everything in the kit. So to start off, the first thing you need to do is choose your altar space. Now some people will say, oh, you need to have an altar facing this direction or that direction, but in practical ways it's not always possible. In fact, a lot of the times it's not possible. I hear from people in flats or shared houses, or that only have one room and there's already wardrobes in there and, you know, other things, and they can't, there's just no way to have it in the specific direction it supposedly needs to be in. Now, while if that's something that really speaks to you, absolutely look into that. And if you have a space facing the direction most aligned with what your altar's for, then go for it. But I personally have had altars both ways, facing the supposed correct way and just where I'm guided to put it in my home. And I have never found an effect on my altar or an effect on any of the ritual work I've done there. So really, I would say trust your intuition and also use some practicality, because an altar does need to be somewhere that you can get to and work with, because if you're going to work ritual there, you need to be able to get to it. So it can't be on a shelf right up at the ceiling level. If you're going to meditate in front of your altar, again, it needs to be a space where there's somewhere for you to sit, be it the floor or a chair, something like that. Needs to be out of the way of little fingers and out of the way of little paws, because you don't want animals or children getting their hands on your tools or anything that they could ingest or harm themselves with. So these practical things come into play. You can use a table, a shelf, a box. You can buy something specially. You can use something that's repurposed. You can paint something, decorate something. You can get as creative as you like, or you can just go to IKEA and buy a shelf. It's completely up to you. All will be just as effective as long as you've got a sacred space. Next, it's choosing whether you want to add an altar cloth or not. Now, an altar cloth, you can buy altar cloths online that are specifically made with pentagrams and things like that on. You can go to the fabric store and get some absolutely beautiful mock velvets and things like that that you can use. Or another alternative, which I often use in kits for the shop, because for specific altars kits that I do, because I use them myself, is shawls. Now the reason I tend to wear shawls and scarves as altar cloths, especially for longer term goals, so if you're doing a healing altar or you're trying to harness a specific energy, if you work with that altar for a long period of time, you're doing ritual there, you're meditating there, that altar cloth that you're using is soaking in that energy, that vibration. So if you've used a shawl or scarf, when you take that altar down, you can wear that shawl. If you've done a lot of protection work, you can use that shawl as part of your ritual afterwards that you're carrying on with long after the altar's taken down. So that's just a little idea that I personally use in my path, and I also utilise in the store. So for this time I have chosen a shawl here for my Imbolc altar. And the next thing to think about is the elements, because when we're working ritual at the beginning, we call in the 4 directions and the 4 elements. But people often miss out the 5th. There are 5. Don't forget source. So we're going to talk about that as well. We want to have balance on our altar. We want to layer our magics on our altar and during our rituals, so it's important to have something to represent each of these, and you can use a ritual tool to do that. That is part of your ritual, so it's a constant layering process, which is what makes the most powerful magic. So the first element I'm going to talk about is fire. Now on this altar we have got a beeswax pillar candle, which, because it's Imbolc, it is green, pink and white, and 100% cotton wick. I really recommend trying to go for as natural a candle as possible, because when we're doing magic, we're calling on energies in nature. We're calling on the elements, the directions, we're calling on deities, we're using herbs and essential oils. So we don't really want to put any chemicals in there. Where paraffin wax is very bad for your health, and it's also not ideal for your magic. So if you can get a sustainable beeswax, where you know it's been sourced properly and it's all natural and beautiful, like our candle in front, use that. Another option is soya wax. Now this is one of our soya tea light candles here, and as you see it's got a crystal in it, so you can use this. Let me just block the back for a minute. You can actually use this tea light to represent fire and earth, because there is a crystal in it. And that is a natural, organic, GMO-free soya wax that is sustainably sourced. I go to great lengths to get that wax, and it is very costly. If you want to learn more about my candles, you can check out either my blog on the website or my Facebook page or group. So you can buy them, like I sell them, or you can make them. You can go online, you can get some soya wax, you can get some beeswax, and you can make your own candles if that's something you have time for and are interested in, because you have full control over what goes into it. You can use a plain white tea light. If all you can get is some natural plain white soya tea lights, you can use those. White can replace any colour, and white is a colour for Imbolc, so that would be perfect on there. But this applies to any ritual. You can use tea lights, pillar candles like the one in front of you. You can use beeswax spell candles, soya pillar candles, completely up to you. And that's your representation of fire on your altar. Another thing, depending on what you're working with, if you are working with fertility energies and stuff like that, particularly Imbolc, beeswax is a really good wax for that, because it's utilising the energy of the bee. So it's all completely and utterly choice. If you are vegan, then you won't want to use beeswax, and I would lean you more towards soya wax. Some people use palm wax, but I'm not really here to get into the whole ethics of all the waxes. Just go with a wax that is natural and goes with you and your ethics. So that's fire. The next element is earth. Now there are numerous ways to have earth on your altar. For this altar here, we're using our crystals from my Imbolc kit, which are green aventurine, unakite and green moss agate. If you have been collecting crystals, maybe you already have these, or have a look and see what crystals you feel drawn to put on your altar. If this is an altar that's not for Imbolc, again, choose crystals that align with the energy you're looking to use. So that's one way to call in the energy of earth. Another way is our herb mix. This is some Immolc herb mix, which comes in the kit. But if you have herbs yourself, if you grow herbs, you can make yourself an Immolc herb mix. So that in a little bowl represents earth as well and brings in the energy of the herbs. So you can do both. You don't need to have one representation of each. I also use the Immolc herb mix to make charms and stuff like this. So this will be maybe in your ritual or on your altar. You can keep charms on your altar, charge them up during your ritual, make them during your ritual. These are all representations of earth. You can also add soil from your garden to represent earth if you have a garden. So whatever to you says earth, incorporate into your altar. The next is air. Now, air can be represented again by many things. Here I have some Immolc incense. Now, there are several ways of burning this I just want to go over. You can, of course, burn this on a charcoal disc in a heat-proof cauldron with some sand in the bottom. I don't use charcoal, which if you've seen my incense video, you will know. I use an incense chimney, which has a grate and uses tea lights in the bottom. So you put a little bit of your incense on there, light the tea light, and then this will smoke just the same as a charcoal, but without the actual charcoal. If you cannot burn herbs, you don't want to use charcoal, you don't want to have any kind of smoke from your herbs, another way that you can utilize incense is with a traditional tea light oil burner. So put a little bit of water in the top of your oil burner, pop in your incense, and the tea light will gently heat the water, gently heat the herbs, and let off an aroma, which will be much less strong than an incense, and you won't have any smoke. So that's another way of utilizing both air and water there, because you've got the water in your oil burner and the steam which comes up and is in the air. So that's several ways of using incense on your altar. Another thing you can use to represent air on your altar is a feather or a smudge fan. So if you have one of those, then you can pop that on your altar. If you have found a bird feather, or you've been out on a walk, you can go and collect some bird feathers and look up online how to clean them properly and everything. You don't want to just go out for a walk, bring home a feather and start, bringing that around, because that can have germs on it. So you do want to look up online how to treat a feather and use that properly. But a feather can represent air. Another thing that I always have on the altar, which represents air as well, is my sage and Palo Santo. So this is Californian white sage and a Palo Santo stick, and they're used to clear the energy, because you want to be able to regularly clear the energy on your altar space. If you're going to be doing any ritual, you always want to clear the energy with something. It can be like say sage or Palo Santo to get rid of any negative energies. I use the sage to remove the negative energies, the Palo Santo to bring in the sweet spirits and energies and healing energies. And that too represents air. Now again, back to if you can't use smoke and you can't burn things in your house because you or someone in your house is asthmatic or you just don't like it, then you can completely take your smudge out of the equation there and use either an aura spray, like my energy clearing aura spray. You can make one yourself. If you are making candles, like we spoke about the tea lights, you can make a candle. This is my smudge candle, which in this utilizes the earth with a crystal. Just block that crystal, as well as herbs, plus we've got fire. And there's essential oils in there which represent water. So we've actually got the 4 elements in this one candle, and it will clear your space. So light that 20 minutes before you start your ritual, and that will clear your space and your energies around that. And when you walk into that space, it will clear you without the need for lighting up smoke or smudge. So that's something, again, you can buy or make yourself as an alternative to smudging. I have them all around my house because I don't always want to light up the sage, especially if I'm doing something I don't want to smell of sage. Now next is water. Now I already spoke a little bit of water in that candle with essential oils. Now essential oils and ritual oil blends can represent water on your altar. So that's why I keep the bottle out. You can use this to anoint your stones, to anoint your candles in a tea light oil burner. So you keep that there. That is a representation of water. We have the essential oils in a candle. If you are using an essential oil candle, that can represent water. If we take that back off, and you are someone who has the smudge in a shell, then your shell represents water. Now you can have, if you're not having the smudge and you still want to use a shell, use a small seashell that you find on the beach. Collect some of those, a great representation of water on your altar. Now what about actual water? Now you can have a chalice or even a small bowl with some water in it. Now I do not recommend using tap water because that, as we know, is full of stuff that they add to it, fluoride and other things. Use spring water, but there are some downsides to water on your altar. Sounds like some kind of rhyme or something. You have to keep on top of it, and you have to clean regularly the container it's in, because water will lime scale your chalice. So if you leave it in there until it evaporates out, you will get a white scum in your chalice, even if you're using spring water. So if you're using actual water, keep on top of that water, change it very regularly, which comes back to feeding your altar. An altar needs to be fed. It's no good setting up this altar right here and then lighting your candle in the middle once and then just leaving it sitting there for the next 3 months. Because your altar's not going to work for you. It's not going to have the energy there that it should do. And it's not going to be the sacred space that you want. So you need to feed your altar. If you don't know what that means, then click on the link down below to my website. And when you get there, click on Book of Shadows. There's a load of free information pages, and there's one there on how to feed your altar. So that's a really important thing to make sure you know about. Last but not least is the representation of the 5th element, source. Now, source can be however you see it. Maybe you see source as the higher self. Maybe you see source as deity. Sorry if you heard that big crash. I think the bin people are coming. It can be representation of deity. Here I have used a card from the Goddess Oracle of Bridget, as Imbolc is her Sabbat, to represent source on my Imbolc altar. Now, oracle cards, if you don't have a lot of money for things like statues, because you can absolutely use a statue of Bridget here. I have several, but I've collected them over the years. Now, if you don't have money to go and buy a statue, especially if you don't work with Bridget all the time, she's not a goddess you're close with, and you are just working with her at the energy of her Sabbat, then buying a deck of Goddess Oracle cards, which aren't very expensive, you can get, I think you can get a Doreen Virtue deck for like $9.99. I prefer the Goddess Oracle, which I think is $14.99 on Amazon. I'm not sure, but it's got so many deities in there, and you can just use a card to represent. If you even can't afford that, or if you just don't want a pack of cards, cards don't interest you, you can actually print off a picture from the internet that connects you with that deity and pop that on your altar to represent. So there's lots of options here depending on your budget and how you're feeling about things. But obviously if you have a statue or you want to get a statue, then you'd place a statue on your altar to represent Source. Now comes what I call the extras. Do you need a wand? Do you need an athame? Do you need a chalice? To practice effective ritual, you need none of those. And that's the truth. Don't believe anyone who says you cannot have an altar, you cannot work with deity, you cannot work ritual if you do not have a deity statue, if you do not have an athame, if you do not have a wand. Now, firstly, that's not in everyone's budget to go out and buy all of those things at once. And secondly, my personal opinion, if you feel that you want to go out and buy them all at once and can afford it, and that's what you're drawn to and you found somewhere fabulous, awesome. But the way I've collected my tools over the years is slowly. So that each tool has a memory attached to when I found it and an energy attached to when I found it. So I can pick up my tools, of which now I'm very lucky I have many of, but I can pick up one and I can tell you where I got it, what energy was around at the time, why it spoke to me. And I have a really intense connection with my tools. I do go by the motto that tools are to be used, not to be collected. So I don't have 10 wands and I don't have 5 athames. You know, for me and how I practice, I don't feel there's a need for that, because every time you use a tool like a wand, your energy is connecting with that tool, and that tool is connecting with the energy of you, your ritual, the elements, everything that you're putting into that circle that you have cast around you using your wand is being absorbed by that wand. And you're building a really close relationship to that wand over the years you're working with it. So that's just how I like to collect tools. If you never feel drawn to buy a wand, you don't have to. You can use your finger. Your finger can replace a wand. It can replace an athame. You don't need to have all the tools if you want to have a very simple practice. You may not want them now, but you may feel differently 5 years down the line when you see a wand and that wand speaks to you. So don't feel that this has to be filled with tools. I can go now and I can get a wand. I can go and get a double terminated quartz crystal. I can go and get a grid. I can go and get a copper pyramid. I can go and get a chalice. All of these things. And put them all over this altar. But I don't need them to work a really effective magical Imbolc ritual. What we have here is the basics, and what we have here will work because you are the power source, you are the energy, and it's your magic. These are representations to you and layers to your magic. But if we had to, as a witch, we could grab a white tea light and do a protection spell, literally like outside Sainsbury's, in your car, with nothing but a tea light. If you don't have a tea light, I have worked protection magic when I've had absolutely nothing on me before that I could use except myself. I have before taken off a ring or a bracelet to quickly work some magic when I've been out and about and needed to do something quick for someone. You don't have to have 1,000 tools. I do recommend some tools when you are in your sacred space, because ideally you do want to cast circle and you do want to have a sacred area and you want to have something to represent all of the elements so that you're layering, because layered magic is a very effective magic. But don't feel pressured by the amount of YouTubers I see, which really annoys me. And people that sell tools. I mean, yes, I'm showing you my Imbolc kit here. And if you want to go buy it, great. I will absolutely love making these tools for you because I make them all to order and I'll love doing that for you. But if you just watch this video and never visit my website and never come back to my YouTube video again, but go away today and make yourself an altar with stuff that represents the elements to you from your house or that you've made yourself, and then on Immulk you create your own ritual, then I have succeeded here. And I am just so grateful to have been able to have put that energy and that information out there. So it really, you know, while I do sell tools, for me it's so important to give information, because information is free. That's why I have the Book of Shadows. That's why I have the closed Facebook group. Every Friday I do a free card pull for everyone in the group who wants one. I give free information and teachings in there. That's going to be really upping this year because I want to make a real community out of it. Sharing of our altars and things like that. So if you want to come join the Facebook group, again, that's free. You're under no obligation to buy anything. Click the link down below. I'll put the link to my Facebook page down there as well. Come over and join us. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I hope it helps you create something magical for yourself. I will hopefully see you in my group or my page. And if you do buy tools, I will very much enjoy making them for you. If not, maybe post a picture of the altar that you do make. That's it from me. Blessed be.